Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, the Sanhedrin daf Mem Tes. We're going to begin on Mem Tes at Aleph, the very top line. We're actually in the middle of the discussion of Yoav, in which Yoav was to be sentenced to death. And what he did was he grabbed hold onto the Kronois HaMizbeach, onto the corners of the Mizbeach, and he may have done this in order to buy off some time. And basically what he said was to Shlomo, I cannot be punished with both death as well as the curses of David. And then he said, if you end up putting me to death, then you're going to end up being makabel the curses. Otherwise, if you don't put me to death, then I'll accept the curses. So Shlomo said, my father decreed misa upon you, and therefore you are going to be killed. And the curses, as we saw, ended up befalling the descendants of David. And this is, as we saw the last line that we saw yesterday, going to the top of Mem Testament Aleph, is that it's better to be someone who is cursed than someone who does the cursing. And we see this by the story of David, that since he cursed Bechinam, it went back to his descendants. So now we're going to continue to understand what exactly did Yoav do, and he was brought to court. So Yoav was brought to court to decide what should be with him. So Yoav ben Surya, he killed Avner ben Ner, who was the general from Beis David, Malchus David. The question is, what right did he have to kill Avner? Goyel Adam de Asael Havoy. I am Goyel Adam to Asael. So Yoav was sentenced to death. He had an excuse for killing Avner, since he considered himself the Goyel Adam for Avner killing Yoav's brother, because for killing Yoav's brother Asael, right? So he ended up killing, since Yoav killed his brother Asael, and therefore, in that situation, Yoav was supposed to, let me say it again, let me make sure I get the names right. Avner was the general who was killed by Yoav. So they said to Yoav, you had no right to kill him. So he said, actually, I did have a right to kill Avner, because I, Yoav, am the Goel Hadam. Because Avner was not so innocent. He murdered my brother Asael. And since he killed my brother Asael, he would run to the city of refuge, Ir Miklat, and if not, I'm the Goel Hadam, and therefore I'm able to avenge my brother's blood. And therefore I, Yoav, am not guilty. So where it says, Asael Roidiv Havoy, Asael was a Roidiv. In other words, he was being running away for his life. So So he could have saved him by just himself by only harming one of his limbs. Says Rashi, if someone's trying to kill you, which that's what was going on, where Asael was being chased after by Avner, so Asael had to protect himself from being killed. So Asael killed got killed by Avner. There's a bunch of names over here, and Asael should not have, even though Asael was chasing Avner, but Avner had no right to kill him because he could have just wounded him. Okay, so let's, third time. Yoav is in court because he killed Avner. So he said, what right did you have to kill Avner? He said, well, Avner killed my brother Asael, and because he killed my brother, so I'm considered the Goel Hadam, and therefore I was allowed to kill Avner. So the question is, what do you mean? Asael didn't do anything So he was killed, but Asa was running after Avner. So Avner had a right to protect himself. So he said, not really. Avner could have just wounded my brother. Instead, he killed my brother, and therefore he's accountable. Okay. So Avner couldn't do this. We think Avner had the ability to be able to pinpoint the exact location of where to hit Asael so as not to kill him. Normally, Avner ba'achrei hachanis el hachaimish, that he was able to hit him on the fifth rib. So, like, they knew with exact precision the exact place where to kill someone. Remember, Rav Yochanan b'dayfen chamishis b'makom shemar v'kavi tuyin bay. This is a place with the gallbladder and the liver there. Be'echad me'ivarav v'yachalei. He certainly could have just stabbed him in the leg or something like that. So Avner had great precision in murder or killing. So therefore, there was no way he couldn't have just wounded my brother Asael. Instead, Avner killed my brother Asael. And since Avner killed my brother, so I have a right to be able to avenge my brother's death by killing Avner. So Amalei Nizel Avner. So let him go. Basically, Taka, based on Avner, it's a good answer why Yoav killed him. And it's a good answer. So my time katle la amasa. So the question is, why did you, Yoav, kill Amasa? You're not so innocent. You're not the only. It's not only one case. Okay, Avner I can maybe understand, but how about Amasa? So Malay Amasa morid b'malchus havoy. He was a morid b'malchus, and therefore I had a right to kill him. The king said to Amasa, Hazik leas ish Yehuda, gather for me the men of Yehuda, shosh Hashem in 3 days. Yelach Amasa, and Amasa, even though he was given this direct command, Lahazik es Yehuda v'yoicher v'gomer. It says, and he delayed. So, how did he have a right to delay? He must be, he was morid b'malchus. Or Malay Amasa achin v'rakin darish. He was able to darshan the ach, when it says ach or rak. Ashkachinu the pasiach lahu b'masachta, that he was learning Torah. Omer ksiv kol ish asher yimares picha. Anyone who rebels against your mouth will yishmas debracha, doesn't listen to your words. Achol asher titzavenu, in that which you're commanded. Yumas, which basically says you have to listen to whatever the leader tells you. Yochel, you would think if you Torah, that if let's say you're Isaac and Torah, that you should be Mavatal Torah in order to listen to the king. Tell rak chazak mi'ametz. So it says rak, which means that you actually are not doing anything wrong. And that's what was going on over here. That Amasa was Isaac b'Torah, and since he was learning Torah, even though he was told this, he didn't have to be Mavatal Torah, and even though he delayed, that's not Morid b'Malchus, and therefore you, Yoav, had no right to kill him. Elahu Gavra Morid b'Malchus. It was actually you, Yoav, that's Morid b'Malchus. T'chsiv the Hashamua ba ad Yoav. The matter was said over till Yoav. Ki Yoav nata achrei Odiniyahu. It says that Yoav went after Odiniyahu. Yachar Avshalom lo nata. But after Avshalom, he did not go after. Says Rashi, Avshalom lo nata ki shemarid b'David aviv. When he rebelled against David, his father. So my lo nata. What do you mean he didn't go after Avshalom? So Rabbi Yehuda shebikish lintais lo nata. He wanted to, but he didn't. My time lo nata. So why didn't he go after him? And Rabbi Lezer adayin luchis shel David kayemes. The strength of David was still there. Says Rashi, shebikish lintais gam achri Avshalom. He wanted to go after him too. El shlo gomer machashavto. It didn't go into his mind. So he went after him afterwards. It's tagnini shel David kayomen. Says Rashi, the bali grufin shaloi, the strong people shall yodam who nilcha v'yotzi, from them the wars come out. Uvo pihem it's tanyos techol hashas loshin mazalois lahach kari lehachim yishom shahaya David nismach alehem v'yosol pihem v'hoylachach edivrehem. David, he had 400 kids. Kulan b'nei Yafais Torah hayu meganu glorious hayu. They had this special long hair. They're Yafas Torah. Hayu malichin b'reisha gaisais. They went in front of the wars, the battles. Hayu tein hein bali agrufin shel David. The question is, did they actually fight or they didn't fight? Because maybe fighting and that it shows some element of yichus, but they were again Yafas Torah. Maybe they were just there to scare people. If it wasn't for David, says Rashi, that he was learning Torah, lo asa Yomi milchama, and Yomi would not have done war. Says Rashi, lo asa Yomi milchama, of his chusa shel David, oimedes lo Yomi b'milchamto shel David, that the success of David was because of his Torah. And if it wasn't for Yoav that David wasn't learning Torah, David ben Seruya al Tzava, and you had Yoav in the army. Matam David asim ishma d'sachal cholamay misham Yoav al Tzava, because Yoav was in the army, so it's like going hand in hand. Matam Yoav al Tzava misham David asim ishma d'sachal cholamay. V'yetzi Yoav mi'im David. So Yoav went out from David. V'yishlach malachim achrei Avner, and he sent messengers after Avner. Again, Yoav killed Avner. So v'yashivu oiso mebor hatzira, and they went from Bor Hatzira. So my Bor Hatzira, what is that? So Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana, Bor, it's a pitcher of water, but Sira and a thorn, Garmulo Avner Shiahareg. That's what caused Avner to be killed by Yoav. Says Rashi, Bor Safachas Mayim, it's like a pitcher of water, Shalachach David Mirashaisav Shel Shaul, that David took from the head of Shaul, Kishahaya Yashin B'Magel, when he was sleeping by the caravans. David, this is the time of Shaul. So basically, he went to demonstrate that you want to kill me, and Shaul was encamped and sleeping, and he went and took it. David b'nei Mavasatem shlosh martem es adonechem shvar hisi yochel hargo. He's basically saying, I could have killed you right there. Hayul Avner limchais b'Shaul. At that point, Avner, again, he was killed by Yoav, but he was wrong that he did not protest and speak to Shaul right there. You should be so happy that David didn't kill you. He didn't say a word. Maybe someone from the army took it, whatever, or put it there. So anyway, the point is that through the case of the pitcher of water, so Avner could have spoke on behalf of David for Shaul to stop chasing after him, and he didn't, and therefore he was punished for that. But Sira kites and this thorn, says Rashi, Kisha Sakeres David es kanaf Me'ilu shel Shaul, that when David ripped the garment of Shaul Bamar, when David was hiding in a cave, Hailul Avner Lamed Schus al David. Again, Avner could have said, Shaul Ra Kamachasalecha. Look how kind David is. He ripped your garment. He didn't kill you. He could have easily killed you. But when you were in this cave, El Oimer Shema Kishavartem Eitzel Hakaitzim, Vatzirim Nichnasachem Nakaitzim Bekanaf Melecha, Duhayatamun Shavachast. So maybe it was just a thorn that ripped his garment. Maybe it wasn't David. But again, when it came to the pitcher and the thorn, these were two times David demonstrated that he could have easily have killed Shaul, and he didn't. And Avner, who was there at the time, could have spoken up to have saved David by basically saying, stop trying to kill him. Obviously, Shaul wasn't successful in trying to kill David, but he could have spoken up and said, what are you doing? Why are you constantly chasing after him? Just leave him alone. He didn't say anything, and therefore, this was a mistake that Avner made, and because of that, ultimately, Yoav killed him. And, again, Avner, who killed Asael, was wrong in killing Asael. Okay, could have just wounded him. V'yateu Yoav el toich hashar l'daber ito b'shuli. So Yoav went, and he went toward the gate. So Rabbi Yochanan Shedanu Din Sanhedrin, that they were done the Sanhedrin on him. Says Rashi, Shar is lost in Sanhedri, Shahayu Danin Sham. That's where they judge, by the gate. Amli my taima kataltale asael. Again, why did you kill? Why did you kill Asael? So again, Yoav killed Avner. Yoav also killed Amasa. And then how about Asael, right? Which again was Asael was his brother. So they asked, why did you, Avner, kill Asael? So Asael roidev hoya. Hoya chalatil be'echad miyavarav. I couldn't help him. So Ashta b'dayfa chamishus kavantale be'echad miyavarav v'yichaltale. So what do you mean? You know how to not kill people. So this was again asked on Avner himself. Regarding the removal of a shoe. The removal of a shoe. Says Rashi, Loshan Shalna Lecha. So Yoav asked to Avner. So the question is, how did this happen? How was Yoav successful in killing Avner? So Yoav asked Avner a question, and this is how Yoav killed him, basically. So what was that? Shaylo ba'arma. He asked him a tricky question regarding Yavama, a woman who is a gidemes, who has no hands. The question is, what are you supposed to do when it comes to chalitza? How can you do chalitza? Chaletzes, that's what it should say. Chaletzes, okay. Chaletzes. So how is she supposed to do chalitza, taking off the shoe? So he bent down. This is how she would do it. B'shinah, with her teeth. Vu shalaf charbo v'hargu. So he was bending down. He killed him right on the spot. So it says the shoes that are on the foot. So this is an interesting trick that Yoav had to make Avner vulnerable, because Avner was a great soldier. How did he kill Avner? So he asked him a shayla about taking off shoes, and he killed him. On the 5th rib, we said that's where the gallbladder and the liver are. As Damoy al Roishai, Asher Pagam Mishnei Anoshim Sadikim Toivim Imenu. Toivim Shayu Darshin Achin Varakin Vahuloi Darish. Sadikim Shayu. This is he was this is Amasa was Amasa was not more than Malchus because he was darshaning the Rakin. Sadikim Shein Bepev Lo Asu. Then Beigris Asa. Va'amasa lo nishmar b'charev, and Amasa did not guard the sword. Asher biyad Yoav. Oimarav shalo chashdu, that Yoav would kill him. He wasn't chayshid; he was going to kill him. Amasa didn't suspect that Amasa didn't suspect that Yoav was going to kill him. The Yikva b'beis b'midbar, and he was buried. Yoav, after he was sentenced to death, he was buried in his house in the wilderness. Atu what? Beis b'midbar who? So maybe Huda Amarav Kamidbar. Ma midbar, just like a wilderness, mufker, l'chayil, not beis shel Yoav, mufker l'chayil. This is what we basically were talking about in yesterday's daf, that when it comes to based and sentencing you to death, do the Yorshim inherit? So davar acher kamidbar ma midbar menuka migezel v'arayos abeso shel Yoav menuka migezel v'arayos. So even though you would think Yoav was a murderer, right? He killed all these people, but the truth is his house was menuka from gezel and arayos. Yoav yichya, and Yoav lived as shar ha'ir by the gate. Rabbi Yehuda feel moinine v'sachnata toyim parislahu. Says Rashi, even the dugim katanim, even small fish, the sachnosas and min dugim katanim, another type of fish, he would give it to people. So it's interesting. He was not necessarily, it sounds like on some level maybe he wasn't so nice, but no. But Rashi says mufker l'koil doesn't really mean it was hefker that anyone could take it. It means laniim l'sparnes mebeisai. He used to just open up his house and let anyone who wants to come to take food. So Yoav, again, maskana. He was innocent from killing Avner because Yoav was a goyal hadam for his brother who was killed by who Avner had killed his brother Asael because Avner, who was an expert soldier, didn't have to kill Asael. He could have just wounded him. And even though that's the case, but Yoav was held responsible for killing Amasa, because Amasa was not a morid b'malchus. Question 1. Almin nemar v'yikvar b'beisel b'midbar, which is of course Yoav, and umadua nikra beisel midbar, v'nikra midbar el shahayim mufkar l'chol kamidbar, which is like he allowed poor people, anyone come to his house, or because he was menukah megezel marais kamidbar. Just like you go to a desert, there's nothing to steal. There's no women there for a rice. That's what it's come to tell you. Okay, nothing on TA, TB. V'heishiv Hashem es damo al roish asher pagam b'shnei anoshim sadikim. Yeah, it does say this. This is here. V'heishiv Hashem es damoi al roisho asher pagam b'shnei anoshim sadikim v'toivim imenu. So Hashem caused he should be killed regarding the two people who are tzadikim, etc. Al mi nemer pasik zeh. So I'm not sure. I wrote another answer, but certainly the answer is on Mem Testament Aleph, which is Yoav Shehu Harag S. I wrote Avner, but it may be actually Amasa. Let's see what it says here. Toivim Shari Darshan Achin Varakin V'Hulo Darish. Right, so which is referring to, again, that is referring to TB29 when Yoav killed, I wouldn't say Avner, I would rather say Amasa. Ayin Mem Shin Aleph, and Sadikim Shin Bepev Lo Asa V'Hu B'igeres Asa. Let's see this Rashi. V'harig, let's find this Rashi. Shalol l'kayim mitzvahs hamelech la'avar al divrei Torah amasa k'namrin and avner this savo misa v'lo av v'hulo haya darish harag v'harag Uriah b'mitzvasoi shel David. So he killed Uriah based on David's commandment. Afgav shelo tziva David ela b'igeres. It was only the letter. Etc. Lamer Havuas Uriah. So this is referring to Uriah Hachiti. Okay, that is a very hard question, but that is the answer by David with Uriah Hachiti. And it should say Rashi here somewhere. Mihem Hanashim Shapagam Hem V'Hargu. Okay, I guess you could say it's Amasa, and maybe it's also Avner, but I think Rashi, I'm not sure they want this, but but David was responsible for the death of Uriah Hachiti. Maybe Uriah Hachiti was born b'malchus, so I'm not exactly sure what they're looking for that question. That would be an incredibly difficult question. Now we're going to continue with the famous parak Arba Misais. So we're already learning about Skila, but now we're going to learn about the rest. Arba Misais Nimsula Basin. And there's a particular order over here. Rashi says, Davka Nakat Sidra. This is a particular order. Skila, which is the most chomer, then Sreifa, burning, Hereg, the sword, Mechenik, and then strangulation. The famous Rav Shimon Omer, he says it's Sreifa Skila. Sreifa is actually more chomer than Skila, according to him. Obviously, we're going to understand why. Chenek v'hereg, he holds Chenek, strangulation is more chomer than Hereg. Zu mitzvah san eskolin. This was the mitzvah of skila, says Rashi. Shepirshanu bepirkanul el. We already mentioned all this before, and since we mentioned all four, so now we just throw that line in there. So we already know that all the dinim of skila, that's what we already saw in the previous parak. Says the Gemara, anytime we have a whole list, it's not in any particular order. The exclusion is when it comes to the Shiva Simanim, these 7 different cleaning agencies, cleansing agencies, that non Shiva Simanim Avirin as al hakesem. There's 7 things that could remove a kesem, a stain on a beged, and Rashi says hakesem shel of blood, shibahen diktaku b'seder mishnasan, kol davar hamoyel chaveru karli sam l'gabei, lashon davar hitzrach l'tikun. Okay, so how are we able to be maver al hakesem, to remove the stain? It says Rashi labadkai im dam nida. We want to be able to examine if this dam is dam nida, and therefore she's matame taharis, that she touched, or maybe in fact it's some type of a dye, dye, in which actually all the taharis will remain tahar. It says Rashi v'im aver be'elu shiva simanim. If you use in this order these different cleaning agents, v'yadua shadam haya v'im loy aver, if let's say it doesn't go by, v'yadua shadsava haya. So you can know whether after doing these 7 things, if the stain is still there or not, whether it's dam nida. Mavirin al kesem roik tafel, which is a empty stomach. Umei garisin, clawed hunes. Umei reglayim urine venese or boiches, which is an herb. Kimoilia v'ashlich. This is pearls. Anyway, so there's a particular order. We're going to go through exactly what these things are, but they're all cleansing agents. V'gatani seifa havirin shel kasidrin. If you did it not in this order, oshim havirin shivasan ke'echad. If you did all 7 at the same shot, it doesn't prove anything. So when it comes to a kesem, then it has to be in a particular order. Rapapa samim mishmid rabba imer af arba misais. Also, our Mishnah, Midikab Maflig Rav Shimon, the Shmamina Davkatani. Obviously, there's a reason why it says Skila Sreifa Hereg V'chenek, and Rav Shimon disagrees, because it's in a particular order of what's more Chomer. V'idach Plukdol Kamari, not that we disagree, but the case of a Kesem, there's no Machlokas, so maybe we just don't want to mention any case of Machlokas. Okay. Rapapa Eimer Af Seder Yuma. Also, when it comes to Seder Yuma, says Rashi, the Avodas Yom Kippurim, which is obviously explained in detail in Masechtas Yoma, Hasudoros Memishna Masechtas Yoma, Zoachazu Davka Katani. So all the different things that the Kohen Gadol has to do throughout the entire Yom Kippur, so it's in a particular order, and therefore that also has to be Ditnan. Kol Mas Yom Kippurim Hamurim Al Seder has to be done the right way. Im Hikdim Ma'isel Chaveru Losavul Kum. You can't do one before the Avidah. Why do we mention that? Hahu Chomer Bi'alma. This is just considered Chomer Bi'alma, says Rashi. Amach V'adei Davka Katani. You're right. Of course, the Seder of Yom Kippur is in order. Mihu Chomer Bi'almahu. She Hichmer HaKosim Bi'avodas Oisa Hayoim, that were very strict in the order of the day. She'im Shina B'sidru Apostle. It wasn't done properly in the right order. It's possible. V'lomishum chashivus diavoidesu. It's not because of the chashiva of the avoda. Shetei zois chamura v'chashuva v'chaverta, to say that the Tamid Shel Shachar is more important than Tamid Shel Ben Arboim, and that's why it's first. No. El chaymer hayoim shenichtva chuka b'sidru la'akev. It's just that there's a particular order, but it doesn't show which one is stricter than the other. Right? So it's the same idea like the kesem. So there's certain cleansing agencies that one over the other has more potency. That's the reason why it's not mentioned. Chomer Bi'alma. Rav Huna bar Rav Yeshua Omer Af Seder Talmud. When it comes to the Seder Talmud, Tani Allah Zehu Seder Talmud, this is the order of the Talmud. Again, which would just include the Tamid Shel Shachar first, Tamid Shel Ben Arboim later, etc. V'idach hahu l'mitzvah b'alma. It's a mitzvah. Lafukim mitzvah. Fine. Lafukim mitzvah chalitza. Now, even though these are true, that there is an order, chalitza is not an order. Non mitzvah chalitza. When it comes to the mitzvah of chalitza, as illustrated in Masechtas Yevamos toward the end, bahu v'yavimto ifnei beis din. So the man and the woman go to the beis din. Ha'inaisin lo eitza ha'genes lo. We give them good advice. Shnemer v'karlu zikni iro v'daber alav. We speak to him. So the good advice basically is, listen, if you're 15 years old and let's say she's 15 years old, or let's call her 18 years old, and you're 70 years old, maybe you shouldn't be marrying her, right? Do chalitza. So there's a declaration that needs to be done. It's all done Lashon HaKodesh. All of any as a kanim, so the Yavama goes in front of the Zakanim. The Choltz and Nalo, the shoe is removed. The Yirka Bifanav, and they spit in front. Roy Kanira Dayanim has to be a spit that people see. The Ansav Amran, she says, Kachi Asal Ish, they say so is done to a man, etc. Who doesn't basically have children with this woman because he's denying her this opportunity. Of course, she also may be, because she says Mein Yavmi. The Nikra Shemoy B'Yisrael V'Goymer. Fine. V'Yom Rabbi Yehuda Mitzvah Chalitza Kara V'Kara Chaletzes V'Rekekes V'Kara. So basically, what do? You read. So she says something and he says something. They remove the shoe and then she spits, and then they read something. V'Avidim B'May Kamashmon Masdisin here. Kamashmon Mitzvah Hachi V'Apech Leislon Ba. Even though this is the order, if let's say he says a pasuk before she does, it's not ma'akev. Tanu hachi. Ben shehikdim chalitza or kika chalitza ma shasu asoi. If the shoe is taken off before or after the spitting, even though normally we do chalitza, the shoe is taken off first and then she spits, nonetheless, it's still fine. Lafuki maha did not. Kohen gadol mishamish b'shmoyne kelim. It's also coming to exclude. The Kohen gadol wears 8 garments, as we know. V'hedit barba, the Kohen Hedit wears 4, and it's totally not in order. It says b'katones, the shirt, b'michnasayim, which we're going to see the pants go on first, b'mitznefes, a hat, b'avne, and a belt. Ma'isavalein Kohen Gadol, chayshim, the ephod, the apron, u'me'il, the blue robe, v'tzitz, and the golden headband. V'tanya, b'nayin shli hey davar kodim l'michnasayim, pants go first, and then b'michnasay bad yu'al b'saroi. That's to be on his flesh, which means that's the first thing he wears. So, but Michnasayim is not the first thing mentioned over here because it's not in order. Vatana, my time aktame l'katonis. Why do we mention the shirt before the pants if you're supposed to put the pants on first? Mishum the aktme kra, because in the psukim it first talks about the shirt of the kohen, then it talks about the pants of the kohen. But practicality dictates, requiring, based on the pasuk, that you have to put on the pants first. The kro my time actime. So why does the pasuk do that? Mishum the mechasi kula guve adifale, because the fact that it covers the whole body, it's better. The reality is this long shirt covered covered up his whole torso and part of his legs. So therefore, that covered more of his body than just putting on pants in which your entire body from your waist up is exposed. So therefore, just out of like sneeze or something along those lines, we mentioned the shirt first, when the truth is the pants go on first. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's look at a couple more questions. Question 2. Where do we say that order matters? So, first of all, in our Mishnah, right, Dal Misas based in, we also have the 7 simanim when it comes to a kesem of a stain, whether it's dam. A third is the order of the Avodah and Yom Kippur, and the fourth is the Seder HaTamid. Question 3. Eza misa medal misas based in he hachamor b'yoser. So we know it's either skill or sreifa. Eza misa medal misos he hakal b'yoser. Again, based on the Mishnah, it's either hereg or chenek. So that's the machlokas Reb Shimon and the Tanakama. Okay, let's see. Maybe question TA 28. So there's no order. Alma koi. What is this going on. So where do we see that there's no order? So certainly when it comes to chalitza, it says Shim Hikdim Rikika Chalitza Akiv. If you spit before the taking off the shoe, it doesn't matter. Even though typically we do the shoe before the spitting. Okay? And just the easy way to remember, shoe is H-O, which comes before in the dictionary, spit, S-P. So we usually do the shoe before the spit. Because even though it's not written this way, but the TA28, the pants go on first, even though it's not in that order, which is kind of interesting because we actually see Taka, it is supposed to be in a particular order, because at least the pants have to be in a particular order, but the point is it's not written in that particular order. And therefore, because of that, that's another place where it's not written in a particular order. So when it comes to, let's get this, mitzvahs, lafuki mitzvahs chalitza, which as you know discusses at great length over here, and that's that. Let's see, maybe TB 30. Ezer mitzvah medal misas based in hiya chamor b'yaiser. So we'll just do this right away, which is Mem Testament base and possibly Nun and Aleph. Basically the Beferish Mishnah. So I wrote Machlokes Tanakam Rab Shimon im skilu sreifa chamor yaiser v'gam yesh machlokes im chenek o saiv herig chamor yaiser adkan.